Hi, welcome to I Tried to Eat My Phone. I am Karen Jaworski, and I am joined today by my good friend Ken. And we're going to talk about humor today, which I feel like is a great thing that we have shared as friends. And Ken is very funny. Well, I won't build you up too much so people don't expect a whole lot.
Never
Yeah.
say anyone's funny. Never say.
No, I know. Don't expect that, right? Yeah. I'm really a dour, sad person normally. So
Right.
um so Ken, what's a guaranteed laugh for you? Like what's something that you see or go to that's like always makes you laugh? Like a person or a sketch or a
Well,
character or show or something?
I mean, there's a couple. There's like the historical, and then like the current. And this is
Mhm.
pure, not like the concept of humor or anything bigger, but just the straight like, literally laugh out loud kind of quick things. It's normally like little thing. Well, living in Chicago and this was universal, but for gosh, most of the years I lived there, between I don't know 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., it was like two Simpsons episodes, two Seinfeld episodes every day, Monday through Friday. So when you're cooking dinner after work, blah blah blah. Any of those, it was just like endless. And so probably there's a lot of Simpsons things where it's probably pretty bad. It's gotten better. It's kind of faded a little bit, but I'm sure all my family members and friends will have me like, oh man, this is like the time when Homer did this and this, kind of, or you don't even have to say it. You just like the thing happens and you just recall the ridiculousness of a
Yeah.
Homer, and then you just laugh. So that's
Yeah.
and then some of the things in Seinfeld, there's it's endless. Both of those are kind of universal, I think, for most people who are into humor, and it's most
Mhm.
people in general, but for most people who are into humor. And then probably more current, and it's sad, as old as I am, I'm still watching cartoon TV or whatever. But because then it kind of graduates into the Family Guy, and then which I say graduate, but that's very loose. It's I don't know if that's graduating, just moving to the left a little bit or moving to the side to the next one. But then American Dad. So I don't know what channel it is anymore, but TBS or one of those. So kind of after work, they'll have 1 or 2 hours of American Dad. So and I think it's good because I've even heard comedians talk about there's a alien character in there, and they've concentrated more and more over the years on this alien character. And anyway, so there's just endless ridiculous situations and goofiness, and that actually I will literally be laughing out loud on my couch at something stupid that happened. And
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, I will say, I still definitely participate in the cartoon TV stuff. I mean, The Simpsons is always great. I introduced that to the girls and they love that.
oh
As I said in another thing about humor, that I probably introduced the girls to stuff way before they should have watched it, like SNL stuff or whatever. It was like I
right.
worked up the repertoire for them like early on, but they have a great sense of humor now because of it. But one of our favorites lately is Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, they do. I've not watched that. They do the reruns on the same channel, not as
Yeah,
many episodes, but they do have that on there.
yeah. We watched one the other night where uh, they, they were arguing about the kids were having like a snowball fight and they were arguing about it, and it was just one of those things where I thought this is kind of my like theory on comedy is like you just take something that's an everyday thing that people can relate to and you just make it into the superlative, and
Yes.
that
Yep.
makes it like that much funnier. But it was just
Yep.
a whole episode just felt like that was the vibe of it, and the girls just get into hysterics watching that. So there's a little bit that's maybe kind of inappropriate, but we just have the conversations where we say like, we just this is not something we talk about at school. Like
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't
Nothing,
know how
nothing
like
that bad,
edgy
but just,
Bob's
language
Burgers
and
get.
stuff like that. Like, we're like, okay, this is just an at-home thing that we do. Like, so,
Yeah. That's
so,
funny.
we're winning as parents, of course. Do you have someone that you really like these days in terms of like a stand-up comedian or a podcast or um
Oh yeah.
who do you like?
Yeah, so it's funny. There are so many. It gets a little bit overwhelming, and
Mhm.
um, just because So I list. So most of the podcasts I listen to are comedy. They are all kind of comedy in some way.
Mhm.
So, and I don't know if it's like that escapism or just enjoyment of. I mean, who doesn't love to laugh? And when you find something that makes you laugh, it's like
Well, and
it's a
especially
tiny little
this
bit of a
year, I
drug,
mean, we're
kind of.
all,
Or
yeah,
yeah,
we're
right,
all looking for something to like be
right,
funnier than what's going
yeah.
on.
So and so there. I mean, there are a ton of people. Probably one of the uh, so there's a few things I listen to almost daily. One and two of them are on the XM radio.
Mhm.
One is the Bennington Show, just hosted by a guy named Ron Bennington and his daughter.
Mhm.
And he, has been a radio show host forever, and he owned a comedy club in Florida at one point and did stand up, and then quit for like 20 years or something ridiculous, and has now been doing it, for the past couple of years. So he has on a lot of comedians on his show, and collaborates with a lot of them. So his show. There's another one called The Bonfire. It's
Mm,
hosted by a guy named Big J Okerson and Dan Soder.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, and they're both hilarious. And if you see any like Big J Okerson, his crowd work it's amazing that he can push people in the crowd so easily, off the top of your head. Dan Soder, he is he just had an HBO special out a couple months ago, Son of a Gary. But it's more, the hardest thing is the stand up is a little bit different from listening to people hang out and interact, and
Mhm.
on the Bonfire, Soder, he also does voices, and just how, I mean, how quick like, a subject comes up and he immediately has like references and a character and a voice. And you're just like, damn, man, that is like a laugh out loud funny very often for me,
did
for my taste.
Did you this kind of goes to my next question, and this was something I talked about with I don't know if you remember Todd Murphy and Mike Norbut that were in Irish Accent with me.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
talked about humor, and we were talking about Bill Hader, and I said one of the things that I was very interested in was in an interview once he said, well, my family, we always did voices. Like it
Mm,
wasn't just like Bob going to the store. It was like, well, we saw Bob at the store, Bob,
right.
that kind of thing. And I was like, that's my family. It was like we always, kind of imitated the people in the story. So my question to you is like, where do you get your sense of humor? I mean, it seems like you come from a family that has a great sense of humor. Um, where does that come from for you?
Seems is the key word. No. No.
No, I
No.
get that impression. Just you
Yeah.
all seem to have a
Well,
lot of fun together. So
yeah, my mom always did say that the mailman laughed a lot. So I don't know if that's I don't know. Was she saying something? Now that you mention it, oh gosh, what happened,
I
mom?
didn't mean to bring
No.
up a subject that would be difficult for you.
Right. She said he delivered the mail in many different ways. Oh God, it's all you unlock things, memories,
Sorry.
memories. Uh, no, it's fun. It is. And I tell you what, my mom laughs a lot, uh,
Hmm.
and that I think an unspoken about very important characteristic for certain relationships, whether it's even, it could be a friend, um, in a marriage. It's often, you know, my dad is more the dad humor and has kind of always been the dad humor.
Uh-huh.
And but just the my mom kind of laughing at the absurdities of situations of herself or my dad or us or whatever. um you know that laugh of having someone who laughs a lot is, I mean, it's gold. I mean, it's just they're such a good audience for themselves, for other people. And it's funny that you mentioned Scott, because actually I don't know how much interaction you've had with Matt Severs. I often think of him as he is someone who, there's those type of people where they're just always laughing, where he'll be telling a story himself but he'll be laughing in between, or you just
Uh-huh.
play off, and it's always, and so it's such like it's an easy way to play off people. So and yeah, so several of my friends are kind of laughers, and they're funny in themselves, but it makes it easy to bounce off each other. And that's probably where my mom comes in, as she's a laugher personality, so it kind of helps. And you say anything or do anything, and yeah, and my sisters are both like that too, where
Mhm.
it's easy. I can throw out the stuff and they're easy laughers, so it's like I, it's always a nice crowd. It's a friendly crowd.
That's yeah, it's good to have a built-in audience. I think
Oh yeah.
sometimes where, yeah, stuff flies and it works. So that makes sense in a family. Like there's a lot of times where there's someone on stage and someone who's in the audience is kind
Right,
of
right,
a
right.
dynamic that happens a lot.
Right, right. It's sadly, I'm probably mostly on stage. When I'm on
Ditto.
stage, yeah.
um when when has been a time that you floated the lead balloon, like a time where you made light of something and it
Oh,
did not go over well?
oh yeah.
Because I've
Yeah,
had
I feel.
times like I during this the whole thing with going through breast cancer, like the way I dealt with it was like, I'm going to be funny about this and laugh about this because I honestly I feel like it's kind of comical. Like there's
Mm,
people telling you all this stuff that you have to do and you're like, really? Okay, great, that sounds like fun, like I can't wait.
right.
So I would make light of stuff just
Oh
for
yeah.
me to get through it mentally. And sometimes I would say stuff and like doctors, nurses, other people would be like, oh, okay. And I was like, no, 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 it's okay. Like this is how I like process this. Like
Oh yeah.
don't
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm like
No, no,
don't
no. But what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about, that's, they call it gallow humor. That's like as old as, I'm
yes.
come from like an Eastern Europe, I'm Polish, so it's Eastern European background. So
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of like, oh, everything's funny. It was like everything's terrible. Like no matter what it is, everything's terrible. And you just deal with it with this like
Yeah.
firing off this like funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah.
when it was the time that you have like it hasn't gone over well.
Gosh, there's really, listen, everything goes over well. It's just how high does it fly? No, it's always that. I'm trying to. There's one I can kind of. There's one I can think of, but I can't. Like, I don't remember the exact words or the exact thing. But it's usually in these situations when it'll happen. And I think it happens to a lot of people where you're kind of like, you're with a group of friends and something comes up and you're all, and maybe it could even and usually it'll happen most lead balloony on something that's more of an edgy topic or something, and
Mhm.
everyone's like throwing out whatever's, and gosh, because I think I was with like Scott Severs, and I don't know if you did, you know Pee Wee, Josh Quinn,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
him.
it was. I think it would feel like it was a spring break in college or something. It's funny that it's like somehow this scarred me or something. But you're so, and we were all just I can't. And like I said, it's so hard to remember. But usually, what it is it's a friends or something, and you're when it's like here's the joke, and someone says something, and someone else says something, and everyone's laughing and laughing. Here's another one. Here's another, and you keep like tagging the joke, and then one person tags it too far, and then it just like
Like,
it's straight. And I can't remember what it was, but we were doing something about like Shania Twain's "You Don't Impress Me Much," you know. And we were just like saying like phrases and then ending it with like "You don't impress me much" or something like that. And then somehow it got to like Jesus Christ and blah blah blah.
oh
And,
God.
so you died
Eh.
on the cross. It doesn't impress me, but like, and it got to, and yeah, I don't even remember exactly what I said, but when it started going down that road and I said something, and then it was just like whoosh. And probably no one remembers but me. Like I guarantee no one even like they might vaguely remember the circumstance, or like being in where you were, Vegas, or where we were in spring break or whatever it was we were doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, but if you say like I was like, oh, I did remember like yeah, and I'm like, yeah, this. Yeah, and that was, and this concludes our fun with this Shania Twain riff.
And exit stage right. Yeah. That's
Right,
no,
right. That's
but
that,
you're
that's when that's
so
when the
right. Like
Sandman came and swept me off the stage.
that you're so right though. There's those moments where like everyone's laughing about something and it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where all of a sudden somebody saw something and it's like, okay, no.
Right.
Like,
Too
like
far. Too
wow.
far.
Yeah.
No. Nope.
Did you ever think about doing like stand up or writing or anything like that
Yeah.
as a career?
Oh, as a career, probably not.
Hmm.
In Chicago, I did. I was, I don't know what you call it, involved in the comedy community. I had
Mhm.
a ton of friends that were
Yeah.
more serious type stand-ups, and I would go to all the things, and that was really fun and an awesome time. And I did some very limited kind of open mic type stuff. Um, but then yeah. So at that point, that was more just like fun kind of stuff. It wasn't
Mhm.
really, and then what was also kind of a part of it is, I was fortunate enough to be on a good career path, a proper career path. And so then you would see, oh, here comes the sad part of comedy. That you would see behind, what is it, behind the scenes, the tears
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
No, tragedy begets comedy, I always feel. So,
So but I saw so many people, and they were, it was like their life's dream, but they were going nowhere else, and nor did they have anything to fall back on. And you would just see them working really minimum wage type jobs, or struggling, and
mhm,
and knowing, I hate to say, but even that, you can't always see who's going to be a star, but you can sometimes see someone who has potential and like, whoa, that person's pretty awesome, maybe they make it.
mhm,
But there were a lot of people, and it was just like, it was almost more it was like funny on stage, and more like, and maybe funny hanging out, but more like sad after the fact. It's like, okay, well, I got to go flip burgers or whatever. And it's like, yikes, like, and what's your career plan? It's like, yeesh, I don't know, and actually, and it kind of hit home in a weird way. I think it was, gosh, many years after, I don't even know, it was many, many years had passed. And I went, and I don't ask me why we went here, but I think my sisters were visiting, or sister and a friend or something, and we were at Ed DeBevick's. If you remember Ed DeBevick's.
oh yeah, yeah, where they used to give
Right,
you a
when they
hard
they
time and stuff
right,
and
they
like
kind right, they're
yeah.
like halfway giving you a hard time and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
and then and then a guy came up as our waiter, and it was like one of the more top type stand-up guys back in the day.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, Didn't,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like, so I don't know, so it's hard, and I'm sure, yeah, gosh, I can't even imagine, probably tens of thousands of people aspire and go through that, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, so I never really thought, I mean, I probably think of it more presently, more, I don't know, in the last handful of years or so, more on the writing type side, not
Hmm.
necessarily performing, but just writing different things. I keep a journal of, it's the journal, it's the journal of things I'm never going to do, and so I just write in there,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
all
Yeah.
the comedy ideas, and all the ideas that yeah, that when you have a, now that when you have a proper job, and then it makes it hard because you're like done with you're like, the last thing I want to do is like another kind of job with no, you know
Yeah.
to work. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be a great outlet, but it's really tough to like. Yeah. No, it can be like a great outlet, but it takes time and effort
Yeah.
to, come up with something like that. And
Yeah.
it's, it's easy to think like, oh yeah, I can, I can do this, but it takes a lot of time and effort to do it.
Oh yeah.
When
And it takes it also, I feel like it takes people around you. And
Yeah.
I think, if I had more of a, writing, producing clips or type of thing in Chicago, there were a lot more people that I knew, or I feel like it had a lot more of a comedy scene.
Mhm.
Now living in Atlanta, it's, whatever anyone wants to say here, and I've been to a few comedy shows, and there are occasional big comedians that come through here, but it's a different scene, and it's a different,
Mhm.
it's just not, it's not a, yeah, everyone would murder me and say, oh, but it's not a comedy scene. It's not, there's New York is the king, there's LA, and
Mhm.
then, Chicago is also huge, and there might be
Mhm.
little pockets here and there around the country, but those are really the majors. And
Yeah.
if you have a bunch of friends around you, I mean, because that's how things kind of organically develop in both New York and LA. And you hear people, oh yeah, we were all in the same UCB class or whatever, and then, or even if someone wasn't in those, because now those are kind of factories of pumping out, with UCB, because it was, what's the Chicago, in Chicago, the
Second City or
yeah, Second City, right? So it was Second City most of the time, and UCB kind of now has kind of seems like it's kind of taken over the pumping out of people there. But even then, I mean, gosh, how many tens of thousands of people go in there, and then they'll pump out a dozen people
yeah.
that'll have sitcoms and this and that, or go on to writing different shows or whatever. So
Yeah.
but it's just organically, because I just hear from a lot of whether it's a podcast or radio shows I listen to, or some of the people I know of and have met, or we're in New York, they're just around a bunch of people, so they have an idea for something funny, and they can go find their friends that can do, oh, and this guy, he does the cameras, and oh, and hey, I got a
Mhm.
buddy who can edit this, and whatever. It's like, so it's much more kind of accessible to organically, through friends, develop ideas.
Yeah, I always think that comedy is a group process, like, um, because the whole point is, I mean, you're looking for a reaction. That's like the whole idea of
Mm,
comedy. So you're looking for a reaction, and so when you get a reaction from someone and they go, "Oh, you know what? You should, if you punch this part up a little bit," or like, "Oh,
mhm,
this was, I had that same experience and this was the funny thing that happened to me," and it builds.
mhm.
When you're surrounded by funny people, it
Yep,
kind of moves in the right direction, and
yep.
sometimes that's hard to find. Um,
Yeah.
so
So when you're
yeah,
kind of on an island, you come up with ideas, and you think and it's like, and it's, yeah, and I know these certain things can be universally funny, but it's just to develop them into a tangible end
yeah,
product of that to share to the world
yeah.
is, but yeah, everyone does it. Excuses, excuses.
When when you were talking about the sad comedian thing, I just was thinking of Patton Oswalt did a great routine years ago about a magician. Was like when comedy magicians were like a big thing. And he was like, he's like, it was the saddest thing ever because they would come on stage and they would do a trick and make a joke. And then they would unpack this suitcase of like things and like toss it into a laundry bin. And he says the saddest thing was watching them reload their suitcase backstage. It was like a bad, what does he say? It's like a bad Tom Waits song come to life. Like, and the sad magician is reloading his suitcase. Like, so I was like, but it just made me think of that. I think like I said, I feel like most comedians kind of play to what is frustrating or sad or difficult, because that's, people can relate to that, and then all of a sudden they go, oh wait, there's a funny aspect to that. Like there's a part, I mean, there's a reason that there's the drama and comedy masks like together in theater, and you know, that really is they go together well.
Yeah, well, from what I know of most of the comedians I know of or have known a little bit or met or and anything in the comedy community, you know, it's got to be like at least 90% being maybe 95% have kind of, they all have mental issues. Like everyone is mental issues, you know, I mean, just completely off the wall. And, you know, then they're, you know, when they're on stage, when they're, you know, presenting their comedy or they're on the podcast, you know, that's their escape. And then the whole rest of the time, they're just, I mean, not always like completely like miserable. Some of them are completely miserable, and some are just like, yeah. And then, so that's when so I always kind of think of that as like, gosh, I was just, you know, I'm like kind of insane, but I was just one notch below being like crazy enough, you know, like just one notch below being like, you know, depressed enough or struggling enough, or one mental notch below that enough to be gainfully employed in a normal job. And, you know, God, if I was just one notch weirder, then I could, you know, right, then it would be comedy.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think I mean, it's a coping mechanism, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, in general, and to a larger extent for some people, but it's, you know, that's I think that's a pervasive quality among a lot of comedians.
You know what it is, what it kind of is, and no matter what everyone's issues are, there is a going back to the sad. Get out the violin. Do you have production? Can you cue violins on this? Cue the.
I have tissues nearby.
Not the fiddle, not to be confused with the fiddle. We don't want this to go into like the actual violin. Where there is a weird, and I get it, like I said, one notch below, but it's like there's kind of like an emptiness, and it's like it's that laughter of people that like temporarily fills this kind of black hole that just like, because it can never be filled. That's the whole thing of, I would guess most comedians would tell you, because it's a kind of a black hole that never gets filled. It's just always there, and it's like temporarily, you know, it's like a garbage disposal that you're like throwing things into, and like if you're throwing a bunch of stuff into, temporarily the garbage disposal is like, you know, it can't handle it all, so it's got, you know, so the hole is not there, that it's being disposed of, and then eventually it washes away, and then you're back to then the hole is empty again, and you have to find those laughs.
Yeah, I think I feel like for me it's always been like either a band-aid for whatever's going on, like kind of the like, okay, like, wait, you know, this is my workaround, like in a bad situation. And then I think too, for a lot of people, it's sort of pulling yourself out, like it's this rope that kind of pulls you out and goes like, hey, like let's make light of this, like it can't be all that bad, right? Like
Hmm.
so yeah, so I think there's so many components to why humor is important. And actually that kind of leads me to my next question, like where do you feel like humor has helped you in your life? Like where does it come in handy? Like whether it's work or family life or just in general or
It's probably I mean, probably across the board. It's not as necessary with family because, coming from a nice loving family, it's, there's um but it's just in general, and just socially and in work, it's just a natural n- yeah, it's just a natural thing that helps you. It just helps you make friends. Everyone loves someone who can make them laugh, so that's always the,
Mhm.
in any situation. It's just yeah, I mean, it's selfish because it feels good to make people laugh, but yeah, but that's it's but that's it helps with, you know whether it's dating or friends or
Yeah.
work, or not that you can necessarily climb the corporate ladder, being the office jester. Like, make me laugh.
That doesn't work. I don't.
You've made me laugh for years. we so I'm retiring as CEO. You've made me laugh for
Yes.
years. I think you're just the man for the job.
That joke you told back 10 years ago.
Laughter equals profits. You will make people laugh all the way up in the stock price. Um, yeah. So yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
more. It's what it is I will not even trying. It's just part of my personality. My
Yeah.
personality. It's so awesome. I'm so funny. So many friends. I'm just no, well, it's just kind of ingrained. It's not even it's well, because plenty of times, especially more in work situations, it's not like a lead balloon thing, but it is just, I can't help but when any like I can't help but point, like, add something or point out the absurdity of whatever the situation is.
Mhm.
So I just can't help it. So it's like a bad person, bad or good, depending on the personality trait, where, very easily in situations at work, and you just throw out someone's like trying to be serious, and you throw out a one liner, and you're like, okay, but yeah. But also, it helps a lot just in a lot of times in life, whether it is in work with who you get along with or friends, is I kind of ping people.
Hmm.
So when you're in a social situation, it's not always, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm doing it intentionally, sometimes just whatever, but you can say certain things, whether it's a certain type of humor, or
Uh-huh.
um or even pushing some boundary of some sort,
Mhm.
and then you see, oh, this person, I said something kind of crazy, and this person reacted uh exactly how I'd want them to react. Boom, like, that's, oh, here, this is a friend, or this is you know uh, a friend at work, or someone you're going to get along with, because
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
you kind of ping them with something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's really true. For a lot of people, like just kind of that feeling of